Now, this shoe, for all practical purposes, is just the TX3. They called it TX4, I think, to have less confusion along the line, and they just gave it the ST, meaning like synthetic. But this really is just the TX3. And a TX3 is a shoe that I have a lot of experience with. It was kind of my first approach shoe, my first proper one, other than the Boulder. And it was my like introduction to the TX line. And I mean, I love the TX3s. I mean, they're one of the shoes that I've walked the most in. And it's to the point where I actually don't have much of a outsole anymore. It's kind of a bald spot. And I think I'm getting to the point where I'm actually getting to the foam. So needless to say, I've used that pair of shoes for a long time now. And so when I heard that Sportiva was coming out with this model, I rejoiced because I was like, hooray, this is the new TX3. And for the most part, it is just the TX3. But there are definite changes to this shoe from the previous version. And a lot of those changes make sense. I mean, this is the new EVO line, which started with the TX2 EVO. And the whole EVO line as a whole is interesting because the whole like claim to fame was that they're resolable, which is nice. It's definitely nice. It's pretty cool that you have some like eco-conscious thinking about resoling and just like making it easier to resole approach shoes. I mean, if you're on like really aggressive terrain like limestone or even granite for that matter, you can easily burn through rubber real quick, or even sandstone for that matter. But just you can burn through rubber really quick. But having the ability to resole is definitely pretty sick. Although it leads to some questions of, well, by the time you're going to get these shoes ready for a resole, you're probably going to have other problems with the shoe. And like, for example, let me just grab my TX3s. So now that I've got my TX3 in my hand, as you can see, I have worn out the outsole a lot. And that little speck of green is the actual foam. So yeah, these would have needed a resole. But the problem is these shoes are pretty beat up. Like the upper is beat up. You can just see that there's wear. The heel counter has a tear in it. I actually think my left shoe looks a little bit worse, but these shoes are worn. They've been lived in. They are well worn, to say the least. But that's where that issue kind of comes in, is by the time that these needed a resole, the upper was already starting to fail. So as cool as it is that you can resole an approach shoe with the EVO line, it does lead to that point where, well, if I'm going to resole the shoe, wouldn't it be better just to get a new shoe because the uppers are failing? And that's kind of the issue I have with the EVO line. Because really, like, as nice as this shoe is, it's still a shoe. It's going to break down. There is no impervious material. Like, even with this synthetic, it's going to start going out right here. And you're going to have that, like, pinch spot and rub spot, and it's just going to create a hole. It's happened with my TX3s. It's happened with my TX guides. It's happened with every approach shoe that I've had. And it's going to happen with these. So no matter what, the upper of the shoe is still pretty soft in comparison. Like if you were to take the shoe and do some adventures down in the desert, whether it's like slot canyons or just climbing in the desert, and you have to deal with that sand, there's no shot that the upper is going to survive. Like even where the heel counter is and everything, that is such a soft material that I already thought that I'm seeing that's getting a little bit thin just from putting the shoe on with my socks on. Like no sand, no nothing, just socks. And it's already starting to show signs of wear. And that it just goes to show you, like, this is just a regular shoe at the end of the day. Yes, like you can resole the bottom. That's great. But the upper is not as durable. I mean, I actually think that this upper is less durable than the previous version. I just think this whole shoe is built less solidly than the previous version. And that is kind of something that I noticed with the TX2 EVO, is that it seems like even though EVO is defining like evolution of the shoe, I almost think that they've gone down in quality compared to the old version. I mean, even when we're talking about the midsole of this, like this shoe has more of a midsole than the previous version of the TX3, but this midsole does not feel great. It doesn't feel great underfoot, and it doesn't feel great to touch. Like it feels like, I guess the one way I could describe how this feels is, do you know like those like yoga blocks that you can see at like the gym sometimes, or for stretching or whatever? They're kind of blue and they're like a brick size. That's that material that's made of, that kind of foam, and it's kind of hollow. That's what this midsole feels like. And it's not great. And that midsole just, it doesn't feel the best underfoot, but it's also not the most durable. So you're getting this weird thing where, yes, this is the next evolution of the shoe, but in a lot of ways, it's a downgrade. And that's pretty hard for me to say because I do enjoy La Sportiva shoes. They're one of the shoes that I feel like fit me the best, and I've gotten my size just honed down, and like any 44 size shoe that I get from La Sportiva just fits so great, and it just works for me really well. But it is interesting to see that with their new line of approach shoes, or kind of anything for that matter, there's just this weird thing where it's like, it's marketing of this is revolutionary, this is the next step, but it feels like a step backwards. And like, sure, the aesthetics of the shoe is nice, it's updated, it's fancy, but the performance is not as good. And like, that's what was really noticeable one of the more recent times that I had the shoe out and we were going through a slot canyon, quote unquote, but it's more just a hike through a canyon. Going on loose terrain, like side hilling, these shoes did not do great at all. The whole upper felt so sloppy, and it's weird because I noticed with the TX3, they had like a low volume fit, and what that allowed is a little bit more security just doing whatever, whether it's scrambling on boulder fields or whatever. Like that shoe gave me more confidence in my footing. Whereas even though this shoe has the same profile as the TX3, it feels so different. It feels a little bit longer than the TX3, and I guess the old TX4 as well. It also feels more roomier, which isn't the worst thing, because I definitely know that on my old TX3, if I were to try to wear like a sock, like a thicker sock, it would feel too crammed, whereas I can fit a chunkier sock in this. But the flip side is, if I wear a thinner sock, my foot's swimming in this shoe, and this is just my regular size. It's a 44. So the whole fit of the shoe has changed, and at first I was like, that's like, it's weird, but it's not that big of a deal. But being out in that terrain definitely made me realize that no, it's a bigger deal than I thought, because you lose your confidence on your footing in that loose terrain. But the other thing is, when you're walking down, and like, let's say you're in a riverbed, which is going to be automatically kind of rough because you're dealing with a lot of uneven surfaces. I found that when I was walking, my foot was constantly moving in the shoe. So if you would like hit a river rock and your foot would go like this, the shoe would turn, but your foot would kind of stay stationary in it, but it's just turning around it. That, I did about an hour of walking like that. That destroyed my feet for 2 days afterwards. And that was miserable. And like, on that specific trip, I was going to go bouldering, and these shoes messed up my feet so bad that I couldn't even get them in my climbing shoes. They hurt so bad. And like, immediately as I put on my climbing shoes, I was like panicking, because I was like, I literally, like, I can't stand with my climbing shoes on. Like, they hurt so bad. They made my feet swell up so bad. But it's one of those things that it's interesting, because I've walked hundreds of miles in my TX3s, and I've gone through a lot of terrain. I've even ran in them, and they never hurt my feet that bad. Whereas I go on one outing, one little hike that I thought was going to be light work, and my feet are just dying in these. And that was disappointing. And that's kind of my feeling towards the whole new Evo lineup, and this shoe specifically, is it's kind of disappointing. And granted, like, I am going to have higher expectations because I still wear my TX3s and I still love them. And I thought these were just going to be that next replacement for them. And they're really not. And it is just disappointing. And that they're not living up to like my perhaps over romanticized view of the TX3s. But like it just, there's so much about this that just doesn't make sense. I mean, like, if you can see this textured bit on the midsole, like, this is marketed as being more durable. So like, if you are scrambling those boulder fields and all that, like, it's meant to be durable and it's meant to handle whatever you throw at it. If you look at this midsole, like even right here and just in the back, it's torn up, and this was one day of using it. And that just, it's crazy because I've had my TX3s for years, and I've had these shoes for probably less than 5 months, and these look in worse condition for the midsole and a lot of things than the shoes that I've had for years. Like, that doesn't make sense. And especially if this is supposed to be an upgrade. Like, it's supposed to be better. It's supposed to handle more terrain. It's just supposed to be better overall. And yet, I'm finding that it's falling short in a lot of aspects. Now, that's a lot that I've talked critically about this shoe. But I will say there are some things that are good about this shoe. But I also think it has to come with a perspective change. I was thinking that this shoe was going to be a more capable version of the TX3. I mean, the higher midsole, the more aggressive lugs, like, everything pointed to this shoe being better, more technical. And, you know, I don't think it is. And what I've realized now, that after having more approach shoes and using more approach shoes, is that there is a definite performance approach shoe from La Sportiva, and that's the TX Guide. The more time I've spent with all these approach shoes, it is more clear that that is the best technical approach shoe. If you want to climb in it, if you want to handle rough terrain, it's just better because it's stiff and it's built to handle a lot of things. Whereas this shoe more is seeming like a place where this is the perfect like gym to crag shoe. This is more capable than the TX2 Evo by far. And like, the TX2 Evo is great for its lightweightness and the fact that you can like bungee them together, but this is going to be far more capable of a shoe than the TX2 Evo, but it's not as capable as the TX Guide. And it makes sense in ways, but I think with the aesthetics of the shoe, it was more leaning to showing that, no, this is going to be a very capable shoe. And I just don't think so. Like, if you're doing pretty short approaches to boulders, great shoe. If you're doing an alpine bouldering or an alpine crag and you've got to go through scree fields and just big boulder fields to get to the base of the climb, not the best shoe. I'd choose the TX Guide. I'd choose the Equilibrium Speeds. I'd choose a lot of shoes before this shoe. But that's just kind of how it is if you're on easier terrain, easier approaches, this is going to be a great shoe. I think it is definitely better than the TX2 Evo because it gives you more support, but it's not this rugged, high-performance approach shoe that the TX Guide is. It's definitely not, and its place is more of that, you know, your go around the city shoe, the go to the climbing gym shoe, and go to an easy approach type of approach shoe. So all in all, the TX4 EVO ST is definitely an approach shoe from La Sportiva. Is it the best approach shoe that they make? Not really. Is it a great kind of casual approach shoe? I would say so. It's better than the TX2 Evo in my opinion for fit and support and everything. But is it the most technical? No, that would definitely be the TX Guide. But like, am I still going to use this shoe? Yeah, I'm still going to use it. It's good. It's the best, no, but it's good. I can do a lot with it. But It is, it's like, does it fully replace my TX3s that I have? Not really. I think my TX3s hold a special place in my heart, and these just don't hit the same notes that those ones do. And like, it is interesting because this is just the trend of this whole Evo line from La Sportiva. It is the next step in the evolution of La Sportiva's approach shoes. It just happens to be a step that I'm not too jazzed about. So here's to hoping that La Sportiva updates this line of the Evos and gives us something like the Evo Squared, the next evolution of an already existing evolution.